Hey, what's up, my friends? Today I'm gonna try to fix the stop switch, the kill switch, if you want to call it that, but people don't like calling it that, so it's just the engine cutoff switch, and it should go. It says off, run, and off, but it doesn't work when I crank the engine and it runs. I turn it all the ways and it won't cut off the engine. I have to turn the key. So there's something in here that's not getting a connection or something like that. So we're just gonna open it up and see what we got, see if we can fix it. Firstly, take this off. There's two screws. One is right here and the other one is right here. Now we're gonna have to unhook the throttle cable, so you gotta remember how it was hooked in there so we can put it back in the same spot exactly. And in here there are pieces that will fall out, little springs and BBs and all kinds of stuff, ball bearings. So put my hand under here in case something falls out. Alright, so now let me just show you in case this is a video that you're trying to figure out where the throttle cable goes and how it hooks. Let me give you a close view of it if I can. Let's see if I can get any kind of angle in here. Yeah, it's pretty dark, but there you go. Maybe you can see how the throttle cable is hooked up from that angle. So when you're doing this, it is important to take as many pictures as you can so that you can remember where everything is. So if you don't remember where it is, you can look at the picture. So I went ahead and removed the throttle. It's gonna be a pain getting back in, I can tell you that now. And this is where our journey begins. First problem, right off the bat. So this is where the throttle cable is, and that's what hooked to the handle. It hooks on this round one, like that. It's very difficult to get back in, but we'll deal with that later when we're putting it back together. For now, we have our first problem is that this is the start switch that you push the button and it starts the engine. Well, here's the wire that is hooked in here. So let me show you what this looks like inside. And it's a good idea to have something to put your pieces in because there's tiny little pieces that we really don't want to lose. Now, as we can see, how this is in, and it is, see how when that was screwed in, you push the button and it pops back out, so there's a little spring in there. So this looks like that, goes in just like that. And now this little piece here is what the wire connects to. So we'll have to solder that back on there. I don't know if my hand's in the way for you to see, but this needs to be soldered on here, and then it fits in a little groove in there. And now the button has a little spring on it. I was hoping it would come out in one piece, but nope, there's the spring. And here's the button. See, it was facing, there's a little lip on it, and that was facing toward the center, out we can say, toward the center of the clamshell. And now when we put this back together, this hooks into a hole. There's a hole in the handlebar and this fits in it, and that works for the ground. So that has to be in that hole in the handlebar to actually work. So you could feel when it snaps in place, and that's where it needs to be. Now we have our little cup of goodies, and don't just set it on the seat of the motorcycle, because if a wind blows, well, I mean, if you're in the garage or something, it's okay, but if a wind blows and knocks this cup over, you're going to lose all your pieces. So put it somewhere really safe. And because this little piece that we're going to solder the wire to, it's a really small distance. Once you solder this wire to here, then fitting it in the clamshell is going to be difficult, because you're right, it doesn't give you much room to move around and play. So you might want to solder a short wire to here, and then solder it to here to make it a little longer, to give you a little more room while you to put it back together. The only thing is that there's not a lot of room in here, and it won't fit flush on the handlebar if you put too much wire or bulk in there. If you're gonna solder it, if you're gonna put tape on it, things like that all take up room. So you have to be really thoughtful about putting it back together. So now those are in a good safe place. We will forget about this side for a while and get back to the business of fixing this stop switch. Now here's the switch that operates the headlights, and as you can see, when it moves from wire to wire to connect the currents in different ways. So there's a white wire, a red wire, a black wire, and a blue wire, and it moves along this path. But if you look really close, see that little shiny thing? See if I can get something to point with. Right there. That is a ball bearing. It's a tiny BB, and holding it in is a spring inside of a little hole. And so when you move it from position to position, the spring's pushing against the ball bearing to keep it in place, so it switches. So we have to take this out to get to, we have to unscrew the screw and take all of this out to get to the switch. And so you might want to put something on the ground under to catch if this falls out. I'm gonna just try to be super careful not to drop it. It is magnetic, so if you lose it, you can maybe find it with a magnet. But I'm not sure how hard it will be to find another BB that same exact size. But maybe it's just a regular BB, maybe we got plenty of them at the sportsman store, and they're gonna just put a new one in. But it's best just to not lose it, because I don't know what size or diameter it is. Let me grab okay, so here we go. Hope for the best. Okay, so tiny part. We'll slide it right out. And put it in the saving cup. Okay, and now see how this little circuit board is in this little groove here. Now when we pull that out, that ball bearing is going to pop out of there. So I'm going to take that and put it away quickly before we lose it. And there's also a spring in there. Hopefully it won't pop out. Oh, and also make sure that your battery is disconnected while you're doing this. You don't want to short anything out. Okay. So the spring in there. Now this little assembly comes apart. It just slides on there. Put my finger over the hole not to lose the spring. See how that looks? And it just is clipped on there, just like that. So we will put spring and this little plastic piece in our saving cup. All right, one more step out of the way. We can, if this is dirty, corroded or anything, you could use some electronic cleaner and clean it up. And now this is what we are headed for now. So let's see from here. Somehow it's not getting the current through there, or it's stopping or something, where it's not creating the connection, the open circuit or closed circuit that it needs to cut off the engine. So let's pop that. See if I can get that E-clip out of there and have a look at what's underneath. Okay. There is another ball bearing you don't want to lose. And I already see a problem. Do you see it? That's not supposed to be just hanging out there. So there's a tiny little piece of connector and a spring. And look, that. See if it'll focus on it. There we go. See, it's broken. I wonder if I can fix that. And now, here is the two. That's what it attaches to. That's what it touches to open and close the circuit. And also there's these little channels. So when this is in like this, say this center is on run. So let's look under here and see what it looks like. Ah, I get it. So when it's on run, this little piece, this tiny little piece with the spring here, connects them together and connects the current. And so when you twist it one way, it's not connecting the current there, it's not connecting the current there. But it has to be directly in the center to connect the current. So that's a pretty simple little mechanism there. And we will try to clean it up, put it back in. Okay, it's like what I do with the cap. Whew, I have to keep all these pieces together and not lose anything. So that little ball bearing, yeah, that could actually be a little spring in there that the ball bearing is hooked to. So I'll try to pull that out and clean it out. Clean this real good, make sure it gets a good connection. Clean the spring, make sure it's got enough, because that spring is got to push this little clip up hard enough where it's going to touch and connect. And that's what the problem was, is it wasn't in the right place to connect. And it looks like because this is cracked, it may not be up high enough. So I'll try to see what I can do to elevate this just a hair, enough that when we put it back together, this will be working correctly. And just so you'll know, the two ball bearings are not the same size. I kept them separate just to make sure I didn't put them all in the same bowl. But you see the difference in size. The shiny one is the one that goes, the larger one goes over here with the stuff for the switch. See this part here. That goes in here. And this little one is the one that goes in this cap. So it goes right in there. And the spring I pulled out of here, and it is smaller then this spring here that goes with, and also there's a spring in here. Let's see what size that is. So that's a little bit bigger too. So there's 3 springs. a big small spring, a medium-sized small spring, and a small spring. So this one goes on this piece. That's the starter button. This one goes in this hole where the ball bearing goes for the switch for the lights. And this tiny one goes in this hole in this cap with this bearing on top of it. Oh yeah, and there's even a smaller spring in this thing. So I'll take that out and clean it out too. I'm noting all this and videoing this just because there are, you know, if I had this question, then where would I go to get the answer? And I've searched just for a picture of the inside of this cap so I could see what's going on, and I couldn't find anything. So that's the primary reason I'm making this video, is to help anybody else who's trying to rebuild these, to, if you drop the parts or whatever and you're trying to figure it out, this should help you get everything organized. So let me get cleaning these up and putting it back together. I'm using this CRC electronic cleaner. And I have to be, because I know I don't have to say this, but because these parts are so tiny, you have to be gentle on the spray. You don't spray them away and lose them forever. You know, I'll put these in the cup to spray them. I'm going to pull at this spring a little bit. Stretch it out a hair. It's kind of curved, like it's bent. See if I can straighten it out and stretch it out. It might give a little more it might give a little bit more force to push that up, that little switch up in place. Yeah, see how that spring is kind of bent to one side, and make it straight.
So we don't want to shove down in here where it's tight, where it's not going to move. We want it to be able to bounce up and down with that spring, but it feels like it's just in there stuck tight. Now clean, spray it away from the motorcycle. Okay, got that. Now it's time to put it back together. I got the ball bearing and the springs under that, then there's the ball bearing, and over here there's a spring, and there's the little connector switch, the connector piece. It's sticking out a little bit. Hopefully it'll stay out because that's what it needs to do to connect those. If it doesn't work in the future, I'll know that that must have got pushed back in, because the spring is not really that strong and it's not going to hold that out very well. So carefully upside down so that I don't lose the spring or anything. Push that in place and put this nut ring on. And the whole thing that's not too good about it all is that can't really test this. Well, you know, maybe I can. I'll try to test for continuity, whatever that word is, after I get this snip ring back in here. E-clip is what it is. Now if you can get it positioned right, the E-clip fits in almost like the master link of a chain. So if you can get it going on with the two openings toward where you need to push, then you could just get some needle nose pliers, push it right in place. But since they're so tiny and down in a hole, it's really hard to work with. So sometimes you get lucky and it goes right on. Other times you have to fight and fight. Well, there went my ball bearing. Heard it hit, and it sounded like it hit metal. I found it. Okay, so I got the E-clip in there, and now it switches. I can hear it click from each. That's a little ball bearing slipping into each of the little holes that it's supposed to go in. And so now I'm going to turn it to off, and I have my multimeter here, and it's set to I think it's pronounced continuity, to see if it goes through if the circuits connect. So right now they should not. It should be an open circuit where they're not connected to each other. I'm going to touch my leads to this wire and one to this wire, and it should give me no reading. So far so good. Now we'll switch it to the run, and this should give me a reading. We should hear a beep. Yes. And now the other off. Nothing. Now run. Whew. We did it. All right. Turn this off so I don't let the battery down. Now it's time for reassembly. Okay. Now I have this baby, and it is being pushed out under pressure by the spring that's in there. So I'm going to try to hold this as upright as possible. Can't really use assembly lube. You can use assembly lube to hold the spring in the hole, but the BB's not going to be held, not going to hold in place by that assembly lube. So I have short fingernails, so this is where long fingernails will come in handy. May be able to get it. I have the ball bearing pressed up against my thumbnail. Wow. Wow. I am amazed that actually went in. That is great. So now we'll slide the lever in. And put the screw in. Oh, this is the one that had the washer around it. Okay, now let's see if the light switch is working. Yes. Great. All right. I am not good at soldering, but I soldered a short piece of wire to the little connector, and now I'm going to solder this wire to this wire here to make it a little bit longer, so it'll be a little bit easier to put on. Okay, now that's cooled. Wrap a little piece of tape around it. Good from shorting out against anything. But remember, we got to make this as small as possible so everything can fit inside of this little clamshell. Alright, now let's get the rest of the bottom put together. Now, the button with the spring on it, remember this flat side went up, so we'll slide that in place. And then we have this little piece that we just soldered, and it will slide down into the little groove that's made for it. Yeah, from the shape, I was going to say the round side down. See how the clip is going to go in like this with the round side down, so this little piece here needs to go in round side down. See what I mean about not a lot of room. Now we've got to make sure that it goes on with the little button free. It's got to be able to slide. So now we got to slide this metal in between that piece and the button so that the button can fit through the hole. So make sure that that's operable before you screw it in. Now, get the screw out of my hand. Now I'll make sure the button's still operable. Yep, there we go. It's all good. Last but not least, the throttle. Now, this part is probably going to give you some problems. It'd help if you had a friend to pull the cable down from the carburetor side to give you a little bit more space, but since I'm the only one here, just gotta fix it myself. So slide the little thing in the hole. Wiggle it around. Huh. I'm not good at this. Okay, I got it all back together, and now it's time to crank it up and see if it's gonna work. Getting that throttle cable on was super hard. What I ended up doing was I took it off of here and put it on while I was holding it in my hand, and then if you bend the handlebars all the way around like this, then there's just enough room to slide the whole thing back on the bar instead of trying to put it on when it's on the bar. So now let's test that shut off switch and hope it works. Please. Hope the motorcycle cranks.
it don't work. Hate to spend $80 on a whole new switch just because that little piece of plastic's broken. I could search around and see if I could find just that top, but I doubt I can find it. See, it was working when I tested it with the multimeter, but I'm thinking putting it all back together, mashed it down in there, and since that plastic's broken, it doesn't move freely back and forth like it should. So once you push it down in there, it stays, and then it's not close enough to the connections to work. I hope there's somebody out there that will be able to benefit from this video. In my situation, it didn't solve the problem, but maybe in yours it will. So thanks for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.